Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to, this is supposed to be Pod Maverick After Dark. Pod Mavericks game recap. Tonight, I am not joined by Josh Bowe. I am joined by Mavs Moneyball contributors Sudarshan and Michael. How you boys doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. Sudarshan, what time is it where you are? This is important to me.
It is 8:50 in the morning.
So you started off your day with a win, though we're going to get right to why that win was a little goofy. So,
yeah.
Sometimes it's good when we don't go immediately live after the game because my immediate thoughts sometimes, because I wrote the recap too, my immediate thoughts, even if they win sometimes, are like, fuck. Because like the ending of that game sucked. The Dallas Mavericks won against the Toronto Raptors, 125-118. And the important part here is that they won. They are now second in the West. They have won 16 games out of 24. And when I think big picture about the holistic sort of what do we want the Mavericks to do this year, starting 16-8 and being second in the West rules. Is that a feeling you guys have?
It does.
100%.
Okay.
I think
wanted. Oh, sorry, Sud. I was just going to say I wanted 16-8 a few games ago as this thing was playing itself out. Like that was kind of, I don't know, that 2/3 equation kind of a thing. This is a sort of rough schedule. I know a lot of people, and statistically, it is a quote unquote easy schedule in December, but a lot of travel, a lot of game every other day, that kind of a thing, and you're bouncing around from city to city. Even a stop in Dallas doesn't feel like much. You know what I mean? It's sort of another road game in a way. Way back in the day, Don Nelson said something about that when you have 2 or 3 road games, come home for one and then go on the road again, stopping at home almost feels like just another road game. It's just another city. And I feel like we're on that sort of in hyperdrive for this last couple weeks and the next couple after it,
Sudarshan, you noticed that because you actually caught the Brad Townsend article.
Yeah.
What do you think about what the Mavs had to say about all this travel?
I think they were trying to play it down. I think what Townsend had actually written was they didn't actually bring it up until Jason Kidd was actually asked about it, which is, I'm sure things would have been different if the Mavs were not 16-8 and were more like 12-12. I'm sure the aspect of this much travel might have played more into the narrative. Mm-hmm. Which I guess you can ignore the craziness or the unfairness of scheduling in some sense if you're winning.
Yeah, and it's such a funny thing now that I'm thinking about it. Like that's like the classic media question from the media guy who's tired of traveling to be like, aren't you guys tired too? It's like they're kind of doing a different thing here. So I think it's best to talk about this game in 2 chunks. I say we talk about the first 33 minutes or so of the game where the Dallas Mavericks really truly pummeled the Toronto Raptors. And then the last 15 minutes of the game where they tried not to die. And that way we go ahead. No,
it actually, the one thing that struck me is that it shows how far we've come from the point where Luka was drafted and all of these things where we're talking about the quality of wins rather than just, we just pulled it out of our ass and we won. That's it. So we're actually commenting, that they're not playing consistently enough through the game. They're not doing any one of these things. And And we're not like, oh my God, we just won. That's it.
Well, the first quarter was a little dicey. The Mavericks looked a little road weary, and then all of a sudden Kyrie Irving happened, where Kyrie Irving scored 15 points in the first quarter, went 4 or 5 from 3, 5 or 6 from the field, and looked like the best player on the court, which you just love to see. Because I think I was reading some statistics in the pregame show that Kyrie's not exactly had the best road start to the year. And the last game against the Grizzlies, he was a little goofy. No, it wasn't the last game. That was the last close game. So it's just sort of nice to see him get going. And then he didn't shoot a registered field goal in the second quarter or most of the third quarter. Now he did get to the line, so he did take some shot attempts, but it was very odd to see there. And so the Mavericks ended up starting the first quarter 35-28. It was a fun first quarter, but you sort of wondered how the Mavericks 3-point shooting would survive because they were 6 of 13 from the floor, and that felt like the only thing really giving them a boost. I feel like the second quarter, which I didn't get to see all of on my computer, I had to watch some of it on my phone. The Mavericks sort of inched ahead, kept the lead at about 10 to 14 points. Then I feel like they got it as high as 18 points, and it looked like they were about ready to blow the Raptors off the floor, only for them to have like 2 or 3 shots in the final 2 minutes of the half. And then Toronto cuts the lead to 13 points. And it felt like the momentum had sort of shifted a little bit. Grady Dick was, playing out of his mind. And then Luka Doncic does the Luka Doncic thing where he heaves a 35-foot runner. And I mean, it was really, it got registered as 35-foot. I feel like he was right near Jason Kidd on the sideline, or the Toronto Raptors coach.
That felt way deeper, man.
It's the sort of shit we see him do on practice. And it of course, one finally goes in. Which I think is pretty fun for him. So the Mavericks took a 16-point lead, 70-54 into the half. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, this is nice. This is a good cushion. The Mavericks can play with cushion. Luka was really on fire from 3-point line for the first 30 or so minutes of the game. I mean, he finished with 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists, which is, of course, his second straight triple-double and also hilarious.
He's still 6 of 13, so it's not like he shot badly in the second half.
Just shot. He took a couple where I'm like, buddy, and we're gonna get to those. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll hold my tongue for now.
The third quarter begins, and they built and lost a 24-point lead not once but twice, where they get up to 24 really quickly, and it's like, all right, we're going to beat. I said something in the playback that I was watching where I said, you know what? I think the Mavericks should try to score 160 points so that we can say that we beat 2 Eastern Conference teams by scoring 300 points in 2 games. And that was really exciting in terms of where the Mavericks were heading. And they lost the lead. They got it back again just because Kyrie and Luka and everybody was just playing so well. And then it's kind of like the 3-minute mark of the fourth. And I don't have play-by-play up, so somebody can sort of can stat check me and tell me that I'm wrong. Luka took a contested floating to his right fadeaway 3, and everything after that shot is, for me, and I could be misremembering, for me, felt terrible.
No, yeah, the Raptors went on they scored 13 straight points or 14 straight points heading into the beginning of the fourth.
Because it was 100-76. It was 100. And I remember this clearly. And then all of a sudden, they're walking into the fourth quarter, and it's 100-87. So it's like, boys, what are we doing here?
What I think part of it was for me anyway. During that run, there was a sequence of plays where Luka was getting bodied up and I think was objectively being fouled, not sure. Totally hacked, but certainly fouled.
Body bumps and such. Yeah.
Yeah. At least to the degree that if that was happening to LeBron James Harden, they're getting that call. You're bodying up, bumping a guy 30 feet away from the basket and knocking him off kilter. and he wasn't getting those calls. But what I think his big mistake was saying, all right, well, I'm just going to score on you now. And when he does, and when he sticks it to you, we're all thrilled and we love that. When he doesn't, the other team goes on a 13-0 run, and it was very frustrating. Look, Luka had a fantastic game. Back-to-back triple-doubles, second fastest to – I think he's got 300 games with 20 points, 5 assists, 5
He has more games with those stats than he does without them. Isn't that right?
I mean, think of how many players in the league don't have 300 of them in a career. It's absurd, you know? So I don't want to make this a Luka bash because it's not.
No, he was amazing. And he played pretty good defense for a lot of the game, too.
I think he had 4 steals. Yeah. And they were not fluky steals, man. They were earned steals. But that stretch, you know, it was just a lot of one-on-one. I'm gonna make my point because I'm not getting a call. And he never made his point. And they went and scored every possession. Like it was like Luka missed, they convert. Luka missed, they convert. And 13 points down the drain just like that. And then it became interesting for the fourth quarter.
And interesting. The Raptors play physical. They play hard. I think you mentioned it in the playback, Kirk, where, you know, it's one of those things where last season they would probably get away with a lot of this stuff. But I mean, this was a bit of a throwback to last season in terms of how the game was called. I'm sure if we had Ben Taylor on the call or something, we'd have, I don't know, like 80 free throws or something like that.
Well, the first half, you're the one that pointed this out. The first half was actually really fast, and there weren't that many fouls. And then the game ended up with 38 fouls called, which is not an extraordinary amount, but it certainly slowed the game down in the second half. So it was just kind of an odd showing. And so I wrote in my recap that if you don't believe in momentum, and then this was a game where I would show it to you, because the Mavericks had momentum, and because of a few sloppy plays, the Raptors took it from them, and the Mavericks simply never got it back. I mean, they won the game. So that's the only thing that matters. But if this game were 3 minutes longer, I sort of wonder what would have happened. Because the Mavericks just they stopped, and this is the Jason Kidd of it all, where we collectively, I sort of have moved away from Kidd talk because he's not going anywhere, and I think big picture he knows what he's doing. But there's moment to moment stuff where you watch him standing there, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Just like do something, like call a timeout, call a timeout with a decent play that gets the guys a good look, and get them to settle down and lock in defensively. You know, the Mavericks were just flustered from the entire fourth quarter on, where the lead goes from 13 points. And then by the middle of the quarter, it was 6 to 8 points from 5:30 until 1:30, when Grady Dick finally breaks the 6-point barrier by hitting a 3, and the lead goes to 5. And the Mavericks were not running stuff. They just weren't. They were like, all right, let's see if we can get out of here. And that's as a team, because Luka didn't play the first 4 minutes of the fourth as the lead started to really started to grind down. He was out there during the first part, but it was also on the rest of those guys that were out there starting the fourth, where we got a whole lot of, let's just say, mixed bag Spencer, because Spencer still got to the line 8 times. So I don't want to act like he had a bad game. He didn't. But it was just one of those things where you're watching and going, God, are they going to do anything differently? Or are they just going to try to hold on and get out of here? And it's wild to me that the answer ends up being, let's just hold on and see if we can get out of here, which is what the Mavericks did. Derek Lively with a real cool block that was initially ruled a goaltend. And then Luka, I think Luka did hit a pair of free throws down the stretch to help ice it. And so did Lively, hit 1 and 2. And the Mavericks just kind of walk away. They walk away with one. And, you know, it's like the person who tagged me on Twitter who was like, you know, let's just enjoy this. They're second in the West. That's actually the right take. That's actually the right take. But at the same time, I just have to wonder where it's like, man, I really thought they were going to have 2 kind of dominant statement games in a row, and they didn't. The
one thing I would say though, and I kind of had, I found myself a little more frustrated in this one. You know, where it was, I expected kind of the same, you know, especially after the first half. But as I sort of reflected on it, like you said earlier, where you're almost kind of glad you don't jump right on the pod, you can kind of decompress. You basically played an 8-man rotation. Grimes didn't have a great game. Prosper played for a little bit. So you almost can kind of combine them into one guy. I think Prosper got 10 minutes or something like that. But you sort of had an 8-man rotation, no Najee, no Maxey. He's struggling, but, he's still a body. We had a few guys missing. And, we talked about the road war and all this kind of stuff that we're going through. And I will say at the end of the game, it didn't feel like we escaped. The lively block, the lively jump ball, the lively hit 2 free throws before splitting them a little later in the game. And he didn't have a great game, but in the last 3 minutes, he was a big difference maker. And I felt like we locked in just enough that we sort of earned it as opposed to escaped. That was my perception of it. Just kind of.
I like the take because I quite literally wrote on the Mavs Moneyball recap, Dallas Mavericks escape. So the fact that you see it differently, I think is nice. And I think it's a fun way of framing the performance. And I hope you do that when you write your grades and say, just, disagree with me. That's a good way to go about this, because I think the glass, I am a throw the glass against the wall type fan, not even half empty or half full. I'm just pissed. Is sort of my baseline. So I like that framing. I think that's something. Okay, I got to take a break here for our sponsor. Guys, good news. Josh Bowe finally got his body spec scan done. I'm really excited to talk to him about it. Nice. Guys, for those of you who don't know, Body Spec is our first official sponsor here at Pod Maverick. They approached me a few weeks ago, and I think they're a good fit because as a 40-something man, I'm exactly 40, I'm constantly trying to get my life together because I would like to live past 40. And a DEXA scan is a full-body composition scan which helps you understand what's going on with your body. Whether you're a person with a desk job like me, an aspirational athlete, you want to be a weekend warrior and start playing some hoops on the weekend, a DEXA scan is a great way to learn more about where you are physically. Head to the show notes and click the bodyspec.com link. It's specifically designed for us here at Pod Maverick. And you know what, guys? I can see that a lot of you are visiting, which is fantastic. But what you're not doing is you're not using the special promo code, which is where is it here? I wrote it down. I have my banner. It's PodMavs45. It's all caps, PodMavs45, where you can get $15 off your scan. It's a great idea for a gift. It's a great idea to help you jumpstart maybe your New Year's resolution. Body Specs competitors charge as much as $150 for a scan like this. You'll be getting real usable information for a great price. Again, visit the bodyspec.com link in the show notes and use the code PodMavs45 at checkout. Josh and I are looking forward to talking to you about our various experiences. He went to one of the mobile stations near his house, and I went to the actual physical building that's here in Dallas. And they're all over the place. If you go and you look where they are, it's really kind of surprising. I was surprised about how many there are and how easy it is. Okay, I'm going to insert some ads for Blue Wire, and then we will be right back. Okay, welcome. Thanks so much for dealing with my nonsense on the business side of things. While I am begging and cajoling, I recommend that you subscribe to the Pod Maverick YouTube channel, that you subscribe to our podcast if you haven't actually done that as well. It's very fun. I did the I mentioned this the last show, but I got a Spotify Wrapped, which only shows Spotify listeners for the podcast. And it said in terms of people who use Spotify, we have people from 75 different countries around the world, which that was just really cool to me. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I would like for more people to be listening to the show. We got about 10, 12 minutes left. What do you guys think? What else should we talk about here?
I think previewing the OKC game is
let's finish with that. But I think we have to. Right. Is Najee Marshall alive? Is and how important is he to this team?
Yeah, I'm a big Najee fan, man, and I I didn't know what to expect in the offseason. You know, I wasn't watching Pelican games over the last few years with any, you know, habit. I guess I saw them the handful of times that we squared off against them and whatnot. But I got to say, man, the thing that makes me think the happy thoughts about our wings, you know, again, I think I've said this on the last pod or somewhere in the Mavs Moneyball universe, you know, when we had Finney Smith and Bullock, those guys, with all due respect, could not dribble the ball. They could not drive. They could not dribble. If they got the ball at half court and tried to take it over the half court line before the 8-second penalty, it was like you held your breath. Just having PJ, who I think has developed his game over the offseason, because I think he's a better ball handler than he was even last season with us. And Najee, I said it before, he reminds me a lot of like an Antoine Jamison with these crazy little drives, like a nice strong body, and he just finishes those crazy little flip shots, and they always feel good. Like he just feels good. And then hitting the threes, man, he seems like he's a big part of this team. I was sort of surprised he was out. You know, my wife told me earlier than I even realized, oh, Najee's not playing tonight. And I was like, what is this guy?
At least he's with them. At least he's with them.
I was very happy to see him on the bench. And I heard that he was part of like the pregame warm-ups at least. So I'm hoping his return is imminent. Mm-hmm. But I'm high on him, man. I'm loving this guy, and I think he's a huge part of what this team can do.
So the reason I bring him up in a game where he doesn't play is I think in the final 13 minutes, they were missing someone else doing something creatively off the dribble. I felt like there was a lot of stagnation in the final 15 minutes of Dallas offense. Now, you can say you can blame that on anybody. I don't really care who you blame it on. But the fact of the matter is they were a little lethargic, and I think he gives them a little bit of an extra zip. I think he also happens to play very well with Quentin Grimes. And Grimes only played 17 minutes tonight and was over 2, kind of a non-factor. I mean, not kind of. He was a non-factor. And it's just that the way the pieces all fit when these guys are healthy, I think is something we haven't been able to contextualize properly. And, you know, you watch a game like tonight, you hear the Mavericks are 16-8, second in the West. And you also understand that we're sitting here nitpicking stuff because we think that they can be a lot better. And if you're trying to put a glass half full approach to that look or to that type of discussion, I think that's actually pretty cool because I think Michael in particular is a longtime Mavs fan. The 2007 Mavs live in my brain. The 2006, 2007 Mavs. Here's why. They won 67 games. At one point, they had a stretch where they went 52-4, and they peaked too early. And if there's one thing I really have confidence in Jason Kidd about, it's that I don't think he will allow his team to peak too early. Sometimes I feel like he hits the difficulty button on the season to see what the team will do. Tonight's probably a good example of that because I don't think he did a very good job coaching. But the optimist in me sort of has the wonder if that's by design to be like, all right, these guys have to figure their own shit out. Is that a crazy take?
No, that's a great take.
It's fair.
Man. Yeah. Go ahead, Sudarshan.
No, I mean, I mean, on the bad coaching bit, I think we discussed it in the Slack where, you know, he went into 4 minutes in the fourth quarter with 4 timeouts where and he actually lost one on the use it or lose it ones, right? So
I missed that. He had 4 timeouts.
Yeah. So
an asshole, I swear.
So I was following it on the graphic, you know, where they were going into 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then it just went from 3 to 2, and he didn't use it at all. So I think the point where, you know, it's acceptable is that he's doing this in games that it's a little more comfortable, that, you know, we're going to pull it out in some sense. Mm-hmm. And this isn't Kessler Edwards against the Suns at home. This is, I mean, you're experimenting in a more comfortable situation, which is where I think, I mean, the whole discourse about Spencer in the Miami game sort of came about, you know, it's about knowing when to sort of push those buttons. So, I mean, I think doing all of this testing, it's very Belichickian in some sense.
Sure.
Well, I mean, so actually knowing what one, like we wouldn't know that Omax actually can provide some positivity. Mm-hmm. and some energy at least if necessary.
Quite honestly, like you got very frustrated with him in the first stretch of minutes that he played, because was it you who said he plays at 1.75 speed?
Oh no, I saw that tweet on my timeline.
Fantastic. Such a good descriptor. And it's like I occasionally walk into my wife listening to podcasts fast, and I'm just like, what are you doing? What unholy noise is this? And that is how he plays. And tonight he was there was a lot of all of him. Like, he hit the big corner three, he had a big block. He's such an interesting man defender. But you stole some minutes for him when the team needed some, because somebody said in the chat earlier, said like Kyrie or Kid doesn't know what to do without Maxey. I don't think that's entirely accurate, but I do think there's something to it. So figuring out ways to get minutes for a guy like him is pretty important. And it's again, that's why I like talking through these games after the fact, because otherwise I harp on the minute, like, not the things that, because all these things are variations of important, but I think that sliding out with a win is obviously the most important thing, and that they found a way to sort of pull up from the tailspin just enough is where I'm settling.
Yeah. And just to add to what both of you guys are saying, kind of marrying those 2 points, I'm a little bit of I almost have a video game mentality. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, look, turn off fatigue, run the 5 starters, and, just win every game. NBA 2K, we're going to go 82-0, once you figure out the trick. And that's not reality, obviously. And sometimes I feel like that, where I'm like, look, just win the damn game. Stop making it complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But Kid, I'm a big fan of Kid too, and I've more so defended him than not when it comes down to it, even in the sort of down years and stuff like that. But I think tonight's like a really good example. Omax, that's a great point. Playing at 1.75 speed, but he didn't have a quick hook, and that block, that chase down block, he pretty much started from half court, covered a lot of ground, and made a hell of a block. There was the one play that I think it was the first time he touched the ball. He was out near half court and kind of ended up in like this double team trap, broke through it and drove to the hoop. So it was kind of like he has this like energy. He has this sort of vibe about him that doesn't quite fit the NBA yet, but those are a valuable 10 minutes. When you've got a short rotation, you got some injuries. He played him at the right time. He's sort of back home, quote unquote, in Canada. I think he's Montreal, not Toronto, but, whatever. He kind of just found the right spot to get him 10 minutes of burn. It was a pretty good 10 minutes. He had, I think, 3 offensive rebounds. One of them was huge, came out of nowhere. So, like, there's a lot of potential there that I don't think is fake. You know what I mean? I think it's just I think the rawness of it just kind of has to get refined. But it was nice to see him. It was nice to see a Coach Kid moment that can frustrate you between timeouts and the rotations, and Powell and Gafford were on the floor at the same time at one point, kind of these weird little things. But it's like you start seeing like, hey, maybe this might start paying dividends at some point, down the line. And I think that can't be overlooked either. You know what I mean? I think there's some wisdom to what he's doing with those kinds of things.
Well, I do think we should bring it back to the thing Sudarshan said right after break, which was a brief look ahead to the Oklahoma City Thunder game in the NBA Cup. I wonder how much they want to win this, because I think, in terms of pulling out stops and putting things on tape against one of your Western Conference rivals, I wonder how much they value the win and the potential to get money for some of their back end bench guys, an extra $500,000 or whatever it is. I wonder how much they value that versus not showing too much of their cards against a team that they'll probably have to play in the playoffs.
I mean, to be fair, Oklahoma City is extremely well coached. I don't think it's a matter of holding back or like trying to hide anything. The Mavs offense or the Mavs defense is what it is. I don't think it's one of these things that there's tricks and all of those kind of things that you can hide in these kind of scenarios. So I think it's one of those matters where you just go all out and try to win it as much as possible, because they're like you said, they're they are the main rivals in the Western Conference, right?
Right.
Now,
What,
the
like,
two
why do
seed-
you climb the mountain? It's because it's
Exactly.
there. So you sort of have to hope that the competitive juices get to working on these guys because they want to. That's
Right.
sort of where I land as well. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echoing back to just what we were talking about with Kid and stuff like that. I feel like the team's mentality is on the bigger prize, and I think this is nice. And I think I sort of view the whole NBA Cup as I want to win regardless. You know, you're playing Oklahoma City, even better. I want to really win that game, you know, that kind of a thing. And I think the sort of secondary stuff, if you could almost call it that, or maybe better said, it feels like the Mavs maybe think about the cup as secondary. You know what I mean? Where if we just go out and do our job, all right, maybe we play that 83rd game. Maybe we get to the finals of this cup thing. Maybe we bring it home and get a payday for a few guys. But I kind of know what you mean. I don't think it's necessarily the primary driver. I think there's something in the culture that's saying we've got the eye on the bigger prize. This is nice, but we're going to go out and do the best we can, just like it's any other game in a way, but any other game against OKC, which is more than any other game.
I like it.
We've shown that regardless of whether we have Luka, whether we have Kyrie, we're a match for them. So, I mean, particularly with the playoffs, with the win earlier in the season, and this is on the road. So I think it's just a matter of continuing that. And I mean, in some sense, imagine a win against them also allows the Mavericks to live a little bit rent-free in their head. So there's the possibility that it sort of builds that that kind of trepidation, saying that, you know what, we just lost the series, we're down 2-0 in the regular season. I mean, you never know what actually is something that matters when it comes to later in the season. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay, guys, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day or night to join me on this show. I'm going to hang around and do Mavs Party next, but do you guys have any closing thoughts, or should we just get out of Dodge?
My one closer was on Lively, and I don't mean to bring the negative. I just thought he had a funky game today. Like I don't want to say it was a bad game, but it was one of the few times I feel like he was out of sorts and almost low energy.
Pirtle is the kind of big to frustrate him because Pirtle keeps coming regardless of whether he gets destroyed or not.
Yeah.
He challenged a couple of Lively dunks that multiple NBA award caliber centers would make a business decision on. And I think that Lively's a bit of a momentum player himself. And it's like when he's not jacking down dunks, it's a little bit. I do think you're right. His energy was odd, but he kept playing. He got that big block at the end. I love that. But the box score line doesn't really do him. 7 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks. So kind of light work for him.
Yeah, and to end it on a happy note, and I do mean this, I think the outcome of this game could have been very different had he not had the last 2 minutes that he had. You know what I mean? I think it was that important, and it was nice to see on a very odd night for him to kind of still stay the course. Kid trusted him, kept him out there, and he made some big plays when they counted, and that was great.
That's right.
It'll be interesting to build on Michael's point. To see how he plays against someone fairly similar in Hartenstein in the next game.
Very interesting. Great measuring stick game for him because that's where Chet frankly got taken out of it in the playoffs, where Lively was so high energy that he eventually just wore Chet down. I think that mattered. So, well, this is great, guys. You guys have been wonderful. I once again thank you so much for joining. I'm going to kick over to the other show. If anybody wants to come join, I posted that link in the comments. If there's not anybody that wants to talk, I'll just go watch TV with my wife and enjoy my weekend. But everyone, thank you so much. This has been a whole lot of fun. Everyone, be good and go Mavs. Well, hello, friends. We're starting Pod Mavericks Mavs Party. It is our secondary post-game show where if you have any Mavs takes you would like to get off your chest, this is the place to do it. I have posted a StreamYard link in the YouTube show. If you would like to click into that and join and tell me what you think about this game or really where the Mavs are right now, I would love to talk about it with you for a few minutes. Though I do understand after two Eastern Conference games that were a little bit blah in terms of things to talk about, there might not be as much that anyone has to say. And if that's the case, I'll just wrap up today's show and go about my night, and we can talk again on Tuesday after the Oklahoma City Thunder game. So I'm trying to think if there's anything, just to give folks a minute to kind of check in and let me know what they're thinking about tonight. If there's anything that we really didn't hit on that I found interesting or good or bad in relation to that game. PJ Washington was probably the one that we didn't touch on. His 13 points and 5 rebounds were kind of, I would say, his worst performance and since he came back from injury. And that's fine because I would like him to have a bad game before he goes and lights Oklahoma City on fire. And he plays very well against Oklahoma City in Oklahoma City. So that should be fun to see if he can shake off that rust following a night where he was 0 for 6 from 3 after being rather scorching for some time. So he's 0 for 6 from 3. That meant he's 4 for 6 from 2-point range, which is pretty impressive. There was some other interesting games around the NBA tonight. The Denver Nuggets lost despite Nikola Jokic putting up a career high. Oklahoma City held off New Orleans. I'm sure that game was actually not as close as it looks, despite the fact that Brandon Ingram got hurt, and I'm sure they had to recruit some ball boys from the stands. The Pistons beat the Knicks, which is hilarious. Memphis outlasted Boston, which we love to see. The Heat just beat the crap out of Phoenix. Love to see that too. Hey, my man, Mr. Green, calling from down under. What's going on, man?
Hey, Kirk, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How's your day going so far?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Just had to suffer through that game like we did the other day. But, man, Pirtle's good, eh?
He's frustrating. He's the kind of guy you wouldn't like to play against in a pickup game, I'll tell you that.
Man, he's underrated. He's got some skills. Darko seems to love, running his offense through him. He does a good job, man. He's a good passer. Not a great matchup for Lively. I agree with what your man said. Not a great matchup because he's just a little, and having Olynyk on that team as well. I mean, it's not a bad team. It's not a bad team. But gee whiz, I mean, it's hard to keep the foot clamped down on the throat, and I think that's basically what we watched for the last quarter and a bit.
That's what I think too. I was amazed to find out Kid carried 4 timeouts in the final few minutes where it just, you would love to see him be a little more proactive, but I have to respect his intent in teaching and getting these guys to understand that they have to sometimes pull themselves out of their own mess.
Yeah. I mean, it was good to see Omax get a bit of run tonight, but not a hell of a lot of encouraging viewing. He still doesn't do anything for me. I think he was a waste of a pick, to be perfectly honest with you. But it was interesting to see that Grimes didn't really get off tonight. I put it down to matchups a fair bit. I think his defense is really good, man. Like Grimes is really good at getting over screens, and someone put up a stat today saying he's like the 7th in the NBA at getting around screens. His navigation's really good. Grady Dick's going to be a good player. He's got a nice shot on him, but yeah, just a tough watch, man. I mean, you can just feel, like I said it the other day, just the inevitability of we were just going to steamroll it to a win, but then just getting it, to an uncomfortable situation. But you see what happens, man. Kyrie just gets it, fakes that he's going to go all the way to the rim, and then just pulls up at the half loop and just drops one in on him. And,
it's the most lethal Mavericks shot.
Oh yeah.
Since like when Jason Terry was doing it. I mean, Dirk occasionally stopped and popped, and he was more of Dirk was so methodical, but the lightning element of Kyrie doing that is so fun.
He stoops down so low and the defender's like, he is definitely going to lay this up. And then he just stops and just rises and just floats. Floats there and then just drops it in the basket. So it was great to see him be super aggressive out of the gate tonight. I think he had, 14 in the first quarter. And, man, unbelievable. Just that pull-up three in transition. When it was basically 4-on-1. It was Kyrie and there was 4 defenders back, and he just stopped and just drained it. I thought this is going to be one of those nights, and yeah, it was good to see that the two lads almost had 30 each. Kyrie had 29, but bring on OKC, man. I want a real game. We've had 2 shitters back to back. And I know the boys are going to be pumped, and yeah, PJ's probably just powering up for it now. You know, he's just a little bit of glow coming off his shoulders before he explodes against OKC. And I'm glad it's at OKC as well. I'm really looking forward to that because
it'll be a great measuring stick game.
Yeah, definitely.
And Thunder fans are all like 14 fucking years old and have never seen a basketball game before that happened before 2016. And it's just I follow a whole bunch of them, and they're like, we're just clearly the best team in the West. Like, we're clearly the best team in the West. Like, we didn't make it out of the second round, so go fuck yourselves. Like, come talk to me when you've made a finals or Western Conference finals or done anything. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has won fewer playoff games than Jason Tatum has won playoff series. Go away. I like that team, but it's like pride cometh before the fall. Like, I would hate, like, there's an element of me as a Mavs fan where I have grown past the desire for anyone else that doesn't watch the team to comment on how they play, because I don't give a shit. I watch them. I know how they play. I love arguing with people who also watch them. And there's just like the Oklahoma Cities of the world. They want to be told how pretty and special they are. Fuck that. I want to win games.
Yeah. Look, I was pretty, I was pretty harsh on their moves in the off season, and Hardenstein's pretty much, I won't say he's proved me wrong because he hasn't been available for a lot of the games, but he has fit in quite well. And I'm looking forward to see what our boys do, because I don't think he's got the physicality. I think if our centers play physical, I don't think he can match it. And they can't play through him. Not that they want to, but they can't play through him. So I think our centers will be a lot more impactful than they were today. I mean, look, both of them had a decent game. Gaff had a decent game, and so did Lively. But decent is where I would call it. They didn't stand out. They weren't super impactful. But I'm looking forward to testing. I'm just spewing for Chet. I really, really am spewing to, that he's not available to play, because they would be a different team with him.
Oh my God. Like he is such a difficult player to play against. He's so good. And I think he changes the math in this series, but I also don't think he plays this season. Like the way, if you were to describe his injury, did you ever use Chat GPT or anything like that?
No.
So it's AI, but if you were to ask the AI, you're to type in, tell me what this injury means, it quite literally responds with, it is common for people in car crashes. Like, he broke his hip. Like, you and I are old. Hips are scary as shit. Like, I don't so to hear a young man like breaking his hip effectively is frightening. I hope he's able to get it together.
Have you ever had gout, Kirk?
No, the rich man's disease. Oh man, that sounds painful.
Dude, absolutely indescribable. I suffer from it. And believe it or not, I think it's pastries that do it for me. So I've got to lay off the pies and the sausage rolls.
I'm not laughing at you, but that's funny.
I'm just, mate, I'm just keeping it real. But I become a complete invalid. Like, and I'm not downplaying this. A complete invalid, can't walk. The pain is, without the medication, the pain is you're ready to cut your fucking leg off. But man, I couldn't imagine fracturing a hip. But in saying that, he's built to get a fractured hip.
Yes, him and Lively both play so athletically. Like, I worry Lively about not the same kind of injuries, but like Lively's just going to have like what the hell was that kind of injuries the whole time he plays, I think.
Well, to me, he looks pretty solid, but, Chet's straight into that KP mold, and we've seen how KP's career's panned out. Like,
just over time, a guy that skinny is just has challenges. I think that's fair to say.
And like you could imagine going up against an Andre Drummond, and Drummond boxes you out quite hard into your hip area. You know what I mean? It doesn't surprise me that these skinny leg guys have all these lower limb injuries, and unfortunately, I think Chet and Wemby are going to be the same, because coach is going to know that. And this is what I like about Lively against Chet. Coaches are going to know that if you have the physical prowess to overpower a finesse 7-footer, it really puts them at a massive disadvantage. It's those that are afraid to get up in them that I think that they excel against, or they just hang back and shoot 35-foot fucking three-pointers. I managed to watch the last few minutes of the Celtics game, and gee whiz, man, KP doesn't mind throwing them up. But, yeah, that's all he's doing. He wasn't making any. He was just fucking throwing them up. So it's good to see the Celtics choke one out. I'll have to message me old man later on and just remind him about that loss in their home court. But, yeah, man, roll on AKC, Kirk. Like I said, sick of watching these fucking ho-hum drum games. Want to see some poundage. I want to see some stakes basketball.
We're gonna get a stressful game on Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining. Hope to see you then, okay?
Nice to be number 2.
All right. Talk soon.
See you, mate.
All right. Nico's coming up next. Nico, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Made my way to Toronto for the game. It was fun.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I live in upstate New York, so it's the closest venue that you can see them. So even when the Raptors suck, it's worth the trip.
Sure. Man, I bet. How was the crowd there? What was that like?
Dead until that last few minutes when they came close, and the Grady Dick shot that 3-ball and they came within 5, and that's when they erupted for a minute. And then, the Mavs clamped down and everything was fine.
Well, what were your takeaways from seeing them live? I have not gotten to go see the team live. Where were you sitting in relation to the court?
I was up in the rafters.
Yeah, that's what the real people though. So
Yeah,
what'd you think though?
So great arena, actually, first time here. Kind of like cozy, even from like the very, very top rows. You can see a lot, and you feel really close. Sort of better than the American Airlines Center in that respect, I'd say.
So like you're kind of. So would you describe it as like you're above the action? Because American Airlines Center, I feel like when you're up high, you're away from everything.
You're much closer to the action than you are at American Airlines, even at the very top rows. And it seems like the players on the court are closer, and you sort of feel more engaged with the action, even though you're about as far away from it as you can possibly be physically. But the crowd was meh. But the game for the crowd was also not something that you would want to expend a ton of energy for. A lot of Mavs fans, a lot of Luka jerseys, a lot of Kyrie jerseys. Kyrie actually stayed behind and signed jerseys for like 10 minutes after his interview. Yeah, it was really, really nice to see. Omex surprised me. A lot of frenetic energy, positive contributions. I was amazed to see that. And other than that, nice game. I think actually my take from the game being there is that everybody just wanted to get to Oklahoma City. That everybody was like saving energy and just trying to get. When the 3-ball was going in, it was fine. When it stopped going in, they didn't actually try to expend a whole ton more energy apart from let's get out of here and win.
Which, I mean, you wish, like, for a big picture perspective, you don't want to see some of the minutes totals that these guys had tonight. Like Luka playing 38 when he probably could have played 32 kind of sucks. But they're also staring down the barrel of a pretty decent break, whether they win or lose on Tuesday. So,
well, I mean, they've got 2 days until the next game, and then they got a couple of days before the next game, right? And so I think Kid wouldn't have put Luka back in if it didn't start. If it continued being 20 points difference. But
Right.
then it became 5, and it was like, yeah, let's get a win out of here, and you're gonna play 6 more minutes, and we're gonna close this professionally, not with a semi-pro team.
I'll take it. That's
but
pretty awesome, getting to go to the game. I love when people call after games. You're the second person in a row to call from the game that the Mavericks were at on the road. I love this. Second show in a row.
Yeah, and again, my first time here, but I'll come back again. This is
excellent.
Great venue and relatively close for where I live. All right.
That's pretty great. All right.
Thanks, Kirk.
All right. Glad to have you on. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Okay. I think what happens now? I think what happens now is I close up the show and go hang out with my wife a little bit. I don't think I'm going to have any other shows between now and the Tuesday game. I am not sure, though. There's an interesting. I've been during this whole show. I've been kind of tweeting back and forth with somebody, an NBA fan with a whole bunch of numbers after his name, and he's recommending and sort of lamenting, I think, to an extent, that the Mavs media sphere doesn't do a great job with narrative push in relation to Luka, and I don't really disagree, but I also, it's not really something I'm good at. Whereas my friend Jason Gallagher, he of the Young Man in the Three podcast, the Old Man in the Three, kind of whatever the name of their network is a big time Luka fan, and he's not a media member in the classic sense, but he is in media. Whereas he is sort of a narrative story pusher, and I think he and I don't know, I might try to see if I can get him on Monday to talk a little bit more about narrative and where we go from here, because the Luka element of this season, 24 games now, 16-8. I don't know where you'd put Luka. Like, the NBA ladder had him as 8th, which is hilarious, and then puts Jokic and Giannis as like 1 and 2. And it's like, you can't. Last year, the narrative was Luka can't be MVP because of their place in the standings. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, and I don't know how to talk about double standards, because I start to go down a path and then I get pissed off, and I don't think me being mad every show serves anyone. But I am quite good at it, and I am mad. It's not a bit. My favorite part is when people accuse me of of doing bits on this, and it's like, no, I am an angry fan. It's the whole fucking reason I do this. Curse. Okay, been fun. Everybody be good. We'll talk soon, and go Mavs.